everybody. Welcome to the Plantastic podcast. This is our first episode, and we're sitting here with Yinka Freeman from Triple Pocket Events. We're so excited to get into it with her, all about the ins and outs of her company and event management. So this is Yinka. Want to give a quick
Hello.
introduction?
Hi, everyone. I didn't realize I was episode 1. Such an
Yes.
honor. Thank you.
Yes, no, we're so excited to get started, and I knew you would be perfect for our first episode. So let's dive right in. As a little recap, me and Yinka have worked together in the past for Interpride, and you own Triple Pocket Events, which
Correct.
is an outside kind of like you're an event management consultant, would you say?
I'm more so an event production company, or that is our aspiration. That is where
Mhm.
we're heading. I am an event planner. I've been in the event and hospitality industry for over 15 years. Hotels, catering companies, live event production. So the company is really going more towards full scale event production.
Nice. And I mean, that's a lot of work because you don't just work with one type of event or one genre in particular. You have all sorts of different clients. So what's that like to kind
Awesome.
of, deal with those different needs?
Um, it's interesting. It keeps me busy. It keeps me looking young. But it's a very interesting world to be in because one day it could be a corporate conference that I'm dealing with. The next day it could be something very social, like a gala or a fundraiser. Or it could be a festival. So, and then I work in the queer space a lot too, producing all kinds of queer events. So it's very interesting. The one thing I will say is my background and a lot of the event managers that I bring on, their backgrounds are all over the place. But it really helps when you have to deal with so many different types of people and so many different types of events. You kind of start pulling from all of the things you've done in the past, all of the clients you've worked with in the past, and you put it all together and make the event happen or make the client happy. So I think our well-roundedness of the company, me and the people that I bring in really, really helps when we're working with so many different kind of people and so many different types of events.
Definitely. And yeah, that is very important. You have so much experience in the industry, years now. And so what would you say, like, how did you get into the world of event management, and how did you decide that you wanted to kind of start your own
Um,
operation?
Gosh, like I think so many of us event professionals that end up in the history industry really start with the service industry in some way. And so that's where I started. I started as a server. And Kat, I was like one of the worst servers you probably ever met in your life.
No, no way.
Yes,
You're so on
yes.
top of it.
No, not back then. I was really, really bad. Like I would forget water, I would forget what table I'm going to. But I really loved it. I really loved like servicing people and making people happy. And so I just kept with it. And the love just grew more and more and more. And there was just something in me that wanted more each time. So I was a server, I hosted, I bartended, I was a manager. I ended up going into hotels. I catered in hotels. I did group sales in hotels. And then I kind of went back into the live event world and started working for live event production companies. I worked for a sports event endurance company, the Rock and Roll Marathon. And that's really where I really, really, really truly fell in love with event planning and event production was having that job at the Rock and Roll Marathon. And then I worked for a larger catering company and live event industry, live event production company. And that's where I decided that the next challenge would be to start something on my own. And so I did. I gave them a month and then I started Triple Pocket.
My goodness. Wow. That's like a big jump to take too. That's a big leap. Did you already feel like you had built up some, recognition in the industry, like what gave you confidence to kind of take that big step?
So back then, no, I did not think I had built any sort of reputation in the industry, but I knew that I had built up skills throughout the however many years I had been doing all these different jobs that could help me. And honestly, it was really a leap of faith that I took, and also a very, very strong push from a lot of my friends that were just like, what are you doing? You should probably start your own company. And I think I heard that so many times, and it has started happening so often that I just thought, well, if there are other people that are in my sphere that are seeing something in me, what am I not seeing in me? So I took a leap of faith and started it.
Mm, I love it, and, like, how great is it that you had those friends to kinda give you that push because look at where you are now, you know? Um,
Support is a very I talk about support systems a lot because I have a really good support system around me, and they really push me to do a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily do on my own, or it would take me maybe 10 years to figure out that I could do it on my own, but they're always in my face. So I love my friends.
Definitely. And so would you say that, like, you have, the unique opportunity to be very creative in a lot of different ways with the different events that you work with. So do you think that, creativity plays a big role in how you plan your different events? And kind of could you speak to what kind of a role it does play?
Creativity plans a huge, huge, huge role. I think it's very hard to be in the events industry in any sort of capacity, whether you're in AV, whether you're in catering, whether you're actually planning it out. If you do not have a little bit of a creative mind, or you don't bring other people that have a better creative mind than you do, and that is where I am. Like, I think I'm very creative, but I definitely know that some of the people that I bring on are 10 times more creative than I am. And so I tend to surround myself around those people, and I bring those people in because I then start learning about different ways of being creative. And that was one thing that I wasn't necessarily aware of starting in the industry, is that there's so many different types of way that you can be a creative, or you can just be creative. And now I'm fully understanding that. And so I try to just bring anyone that kind of fits that mold. So if we're doing something that's very immersive, I'll try to bring somebody that has a lot of creativity in installments, and building things, and maybe AV creatives as well, because they'll be able to create that immersive environment that I would be like, I don't even, let's put a light up there so someone can touch it, and then, like, that's as far as my creativity will go. But they'll like come up with something completely different. So I like to surround myself with people that are a lot more creative than I am. Like, I know where my capabilities lie, and then I bring someone to take it the rest of the way.
Definitely, and I think that's so important, and I also think because managing events can be such a big job and it can be such a daunting task, especially as you get to those larger events like San Diego Pride or especially like large corporate events. I think a lot of like event organizers who are starting to step into that sphere have trouble building their team and trying to figure out where to start when it comes to, taking on help and, kind of trying to grow in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
You spoke to that a little bit just now, but how would do you have any advice for how someone would go about that? How did you know when it was time to start kind of expanding a little bit more?
My body told me, my brain told me. It got to a point where it was so much that I wasn't allowed to be creative, or I didn't have the chance. It was becoming harder for me to think about concepts, and what to do and how to execute an event, because I was spending so much time doing everything surrounding an event. And one day I just really realized and recognized that I needed help. Um, along the way, I say I am a collector of humans. I love connecting with people. Every single job I've had, I've come out with really great industry friends. And so when I got to that point, I had a running list of people, like my wish list of, oh my gosh, if I could ever get here, I will bring this person on. I'll bring this person on. I'll work with this vendor. And so when I did get to that point where I recognized that, okay, you cannot do this by yourself, I started reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I have a project. Do you just want to come on this one project with me? And one project turned into two projects, turned into 10 projects, and it just kept building that way. And because I'm a collector of humans, I feel like people also put me in their network and collect me. And so I started getting people that would reach out to me and say, hey, I see that you're doing this event and this event. I have this company. I would love to work with you. And so it just became this community that started building around me of all these different types of event professionals. And so I would always say, yes, like, let's do it. Let's work on this project together. Oh my gosh, you know somebody, let's bring them on. And that's really how I kind of grew my network of event production people that work with me. So everybody works on a project per project basis. It allows them the freedom to do whatever they need to do or build their companies if they're on that path, and then they just come on and work on large projects with me, and I love that method.
Yes, that's so important, and also, I think, I love that you spoke about the networking aspect because I think that is so important for event professionals to connect with each other, because it's just such a niche kind of profession, to where everyone kind of knows everybody else a little bit, at least like geographically speaking. And I think it's so important to give the spaces to connect, like conferences are so beneficial. I
Mhm,
always, when I go to the conferences, I make, so many great connections there. And just at other events as well. And I think for us as a company, we've kind of tried to tap into that a little bit. We're doing the event summits now where we're hosting at like events of ours. Like kind of micro conferences where it's just like a dinner and happy hour for like event professionals to connect with each other because we notice that there is like kind of that gap, where like beyond LinkedIn and conferences, we need to give them more of an opportunity to connect and more of an opportunity, especially for the younger event organizers out there who are just starting out. They don't know who to turn to and maybe don't
yep,
have those, your skill set to where they can get those industry connections.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I always say in the event industry, collaboration is the key word, not competition. I think years past, years ago, it might have felt very much like a competitive landscape, but now it doesn't feel that way. And I think COVID played such a huge role in not feeling like you got to compete with this person and this person. But I always look at it as like, there's always going to be events, way more events than there are producers out there. So why not collaborate? And if I know that you're good with this specific area, and that's coming to me as part of one of the events that I have to do, why not bring you on and let you shine in that specific area? Because at the end of the day, you're going to make me shine overall. So I really go with that very much of a collaborative frame of mind when I do events.
Yeah, 100%. And, something I didn't realize until I started working, in the event space is how many events there are. Like kind of how you mentioned that I always, you grow up and there's like fairs and stuff and little things in your town.
Mhm,
You don't realize that every town in America has those things. Like
mhm.
there is stuff going on all the time. Like when I look on our page, there's not a single weekend day, I think, where we're not doing something somewhere in America or Canada
Yeah,
or something's
yeah,
going on. And that's just the tip of the iceberg,
yep,
even.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
constantly stuff going on, and I don't think I realized
Constantly.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's always somebody that is planning it, right? Whether it's an
Mhm.
admin assistant or a full-on event producer, like there's always someone putting on some sort of event. COVID made the entire world recognize that, right? When we couldn't do anything, when you couldn't even go to like a book reading,
Mhm.
that's an event, and a lot of people didn't realize how much events play a role in just everyday life. And so yeah, so there's way too many. There's way too many. So there's no reason anyone in this industry should look at another person as a competitor.
Mhm. Absolutely. Our, CEO always calls it a blue ocean. Like, it's a huge blue ocean and there's thousands of things. So it's like, why not collaborate? Because
Yep.
there's always gonna be opportunity for
Yep.
everybody,
Yep.
Especially because the job is pretty stressful. I don't think there's a whole lot of takers. I think it's something that people fall into because they really love to do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think isn't the event industry like one of like the top three like stressful
Yeah,
jobs?
like the
Like it's
top
like
3 or the top
firefighter
5.
and like
Yeah.
yeah, like it's like all these other people like saving lives and then oh let's put on an event. Also very stressful.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because you're really, like, in charge of all these people, and you hear about event disasters and it's like, "Oh, that sounds pretty bad." So it can't
Yeah.
I can and, like, seeing it firsthand and helping, organizers and going on site at events, I can totally see how it's so stressful. And, when you're attending an event as a guest, like, as an attendee, you don't know anything about the industry. You're just, like, having a great time. You have no idea the strain that people have gone through to, like, put on this event so that your
Yeah.
community can enjoy it.
Yeah, you definitely appreciate the events and going to events way more when you're in the industry. Like, even if I go to an event and it's not the best one, I still fully appreciate it because I'll see why not. I'm like, oh, the linen probably
Mhm,
didn't come in time, or
mhm.
oh, if you can plug that in because blah, 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 either way, you still appreciate it because it took somebody probably months of planning. They probably got up at like 3 a.m. this morning to start setting up. So it just, yeah, it makes you very, very much appreciative of everybody that works in the industry.
Yes, definitely. I'll never forget one of my, like, first on-site trips that I took with my job here was to Wood County Fair, and I was just there to help them. They were using our terminal hardware, and so I was there to, like, onboard everybody and, get them set up to take credit card payments, and, I remember I was waking up at 4 in the morning, and I was leaving at, like, 10 at night,
Yep.
and I was so tired getting there, and everyone was just, like, chipper, like, this was just totally normal for them, and I just, like, never like, from then on, I just knew, like, "Oh, we need to be help these people, like, this is crazy." But like, we love it, like, now when I do it go on site at events and it's like that, I just don't even care at all, I'm, like, into it, I'm, like, bringing coffees for everybody, it's crazy
Yeah.
how that mindset shifts once you realize, like, what you're really doing for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you see all the attendees come through and how much fun they're having and the memories they're creating, it just kind of makes that 4 a.m. wake up call not seem so bad because your brain knows like well you're going to see something pretty amazing today or someone's going to come up to you and be like this is the best time of my life and you're just like okay I will wake up at 4 a.m. for you to have
Mhm.
the best time of your life.
Yes, no, literally, and, that's really just how it is. Um, and so kind of going off of the good, happy vibes, what's one of, like, the most memorable success stories that you had? Or not even a success story, just what's one of those moments where you are maybe on-site at an event and you knew, like, "Oh, this is my job, like, this is what I was meant to do?"
So funny you said on site because I actually want to tell a story that's about a virtual event,
Okay.
not an in person event. But it was very much like the moment that I was like, okay, this is this is where I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So it was 2020, the year that everybody speaks about still. um, and it's actually it's a festival. I now own this festival, by the way. So recent owner of this festival, but
Oh,
it's
wow.
called. Yeah, I know, right? A lot has happened since we last worked together.
I know, I'm like,
Um,
"Well, how did that not come up?"
I know. I'm actually wearing the shirt, the Some of Us Festival. But we 2020 was gonna be our first year doing it in person or just doing it overall. And because of COVID, we clearly could not put it on. And so I was very much a big proponent of virtual events. I learned all about it, what to do, what is this whole world of virtual events, and so we took it virtual. So we had about 350 attendees. It was 3 days. And over the 3 days, all 350 attendees stayed with us. It's a festival for the queer community, so queer women and trans identifying identities. Um, and for me, it was the first time that I recognized that events bring together communities and form communities as well. And it was so needed at that time, right? When we were all by ourselves in our homes, just and some people's homes aren't the best homes to be in for months and years on end, right? And so for that weekend, it was just a safe space. It was a space for people to be as much as themselves virtually as possible. And at the end of the festival, we had a closing ceremony where we allowed attendees to come up and kind of talk about their experience. Kat, I don't think I've ever like just cried so much at any event, like any time before in my life. And it just really instilled in me the importance of events and the importance of events forming communities. And it made me realize, oh, okay, anytime you form you plan an event and you bring people together, you're for a little bit at least, you're forming some sort of community. And that has always weighed on my it's always been on my mind ever since then. And so that's kind of how I carry event production right now is it doesn't matter what kind of event for 2 hours, you form a micro community at least. And these people get to be a part of community for a little bit. And that's how I look at events now. And that's why I'm going to be in events forever.
100%. Oh my gosh. That like I couldn't think of a better story to sum up just like the experience, working in this industry. And especially through COVID, we had the same experience where it's like people need to be together more than ever, but it's like you can't. You can't all be together. And I think we also got really into virtual events during COVID. And I think that that was the shift that kind of um projected us as a company to have longevity through that time because we people still wanted to have events. We realized, people still want to get together. So we have to figure out a way, to make this work for everybody, especially because, in 2020, we're a pretty new company. We just had like signed some big clients. We're
Right.
trying, and it's COVID, and everyone's like, what are we going to do now? And so I
Yeah.
think coming through with a solution really, benefited a lot of people. And I think that it also helped us realize how important the event planning, you know, I guess not even just industry, but just how important it is for people to get together.
Yeah.
And we had made that the forefront of our mission. We were like, okay, this is something different that we're working with here. It's not just, a software. It's really
Hmm.
important that people can, get together and see us as people too, the people who work here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, at least for me, when I thought about events before, it was very much like, okay, well, what's going to be the theme? What colors, what linens are we going to rent? What tables and chairs? And now I really try to say, okay, what's the attendee? Like, what are they like? What do they want? What are they hoping to get out of this event? And kind of, I start